Welcome. It's time to go to school on the Korg I-Series Interactive Music Workstation. During the past few years, Korg has become famous for producing award-winning synthesizers and music workstations. The i3 recently won the 1993 award for the most innovative keyboard product. Both the i2 and i3 interactive music workstations feature superb sound quality with 32-note polyphony, studio quality effects, and powerful sequencing capabilities. This video will show you how to use the i2 and i3 for all types of music production. Lance Abair has performed across the United States doing clinics and MIDI seminars. And his other instructional videos for the Korg M1, O1W, O3R, X3, and Mark of the Unicorns Performer have been used by musicians throughout the world. Lance's simple and easy-to-understand explanations have helped countless musicians to get the most out of their MIDI equipment. Now, before we begin, make sure that you have your VCR and your i2 or i3 set up and ready to go as Lance walks you through this fine musical instrument.
Hello, my name is Lance Abair, and I'd like to congratulate you on your purchase of a Korg i2 or i3 Interactive Music Workstation. With this video, I'd like to help you become acquainted with the i2 and i3 by walking you through the basics, covering the subjects that most owners want to know about as soon as they get their new instrument home. As I go through various procedures, you should be aware that everything I do on the i3 also applies to the i2. In fact, when I use the term i3, I'll also be referring to the i2. I'll show you how to work with arrangements, backing sequences, and the song sequencer, along with some hot tips and shortcuts to help you get more power from this great instrument. I want to keep this video as simple as possible, presenting the material in sections to allow you to find information more easily. Also, if I start to go a little too fast, you can always pause, stop, or rewind the tape. Now let's get started. The i3 Player's Guide includes a helpful diagram which shows you how to connect your i3 to a home stereo or to an amp and speaker system. Let's load one of the i3's files. Insert the factory disk into the drive like this. Push it in until you hear a click. Now press the disk mode button. The display will be highlighting Load All Data, which will load all the arrangements, programs, backing sequences, songs, and styles, and global information. At the bottom of the screen is the word File with a blank area next to it. Press the B cursor button. The file name America appears. Now press the Up button to look at the other files that are on this disk: Europe, Japan, and the i2D bank. Load America if you're using an i3, and if you're using the i2, also load the i2D bank using the Load All Program function. Press the H cursor key and answer yes. You're now loading 4 great demo backing sequences. Before listening, make sure that the i3's master volume slider is turned down. When the music starts, raise the master volume slowly to protect your equipment and your hearing. When the word completed appears in the display, press the backing sequencer button and then the start-stop button. The sequences will chain play in order. You can press the Start-Stop button at any time to pause or continue playing. Let's talk about the sounds of the i3. In the i3 Performance Notes is a complete program list. It's a good idea to keep this nearby when looking for sounds. Now press the Program Mode button. The i3 sound programs are divided into 4 banks. Banks A and B use general MIDI programs. C is a preset bank, And D is a preset user bank. The D user bank is where you can rewrite programs from the A, B, C, and D banks, or you can load in programs from any I-series or X-series disk. Each bank contains 64 programs for a total of 256 sounds. Here's how to select programs. Select A31 full organ. Press the A bank button, and then using the program buttons, press 3 on the top row and 1 on the bottom row. Notice that when I use Aftertouch and press harder on the keys, the rotary speaker effect speeds up. When I reduce the pressure, the effect slows down. This is an example of dynamic effect modulation. Now let's call up D11 piano 8 foot. I'll press the D bank button and select number 11 with the program buttons. I can use the octave up and down buttons to change the octave setting like this. If you press both buttons at the same time, it will undo any octave transpositions. I can also transpose the keyboard up or down by half steps by pressing the transpose buttons like this. Likewise, pressing both transpose buttons returns the keyboard to normal pitch. Performance editing lets you use the 8 function buttons underneath the display to make quick edits. You can quickly adjust the octave, brightness, attack and release times, volume level, velocity sensitivity, and effect levels of any sound. Let's press the C button and move the data wheel to change the brightness of our piano sound. Now let's adjust the amount of reverb and effects by pressing the H button and using the data wheel. You can also use the up and down buttons to perform the same functions. The Edit Program mode provides a deeper level of sound editing. Editing programs on the i3 is very similar in style to that of an analog synthesizer, and it's not difficult to learn. Sound editing would take up an entire video, so I'll just show you how to get around. Press the Edit Program button and use the Page Plus key to move up through the editing pages. Stop on page 4. Notice that you can use the cursor keys to move from field to field on a page. Any parameter on any page can be changed by using the data wheel or the up and down buttons. You can use the compare button to go back and forth between your edit and the original sound. Notice that when you highlight a parameter in the screen, that words pop up in the top right-hand corner. Korg provides these display cues to assist you in understanding the abbreviations in the fields below. Always check the top right-hand corner for these helpful prompts that can be found in every mode of the i3. On page 9, you can rename your program using the Insert, Delete, and Arrow keys like this. I'll delete all characters and put in i3 using the data wheel and the up and down buttons. The write function lets you write an edited program to a location in the user bank. First, select the program in the D bank you wish to write over. Press the button under the word write and answer yes. I don't want to change this program, so I'll answer no. The arrangement play mode is one of the most exciting parts of the i3. This mode is for live performance using the i3's interactive functions. Press the Arrangement Play Mode button. Each arrangement contains a musical style. A style is a collection of musically related patterns grouped together in a special way that enables the i3 to perform a number of functions such as intros, endings, fills, and variations. The display shows the arrangement's name and number, which style is being used, the split point, tempo indicator, chord analysis, key transposition, drum mapping, keyboard 1 and 2 sound selections, and their octave settings. The function keys below the display can be used to play or mute any of the parts you're working with. By the way, at the top left is the output mixer for the arrangement play section. This mixer gives you instant control over the volumes of the drums, percussion tracks, the bass track, the 3 accompaniment tracks, the keyboard 1 and manual drum sounds, and finally, the keyboard 2 sounds. These mixer settings cannot be written into memory. In an arrangement, each musical style has 4 variations, 2 fills, and 2 intros and endings. There are 2 ways of starting an arrangement: by pressing the Start-Stop button, or by pressing the Synchro Start-Stop button and playing any note within the chord scanning range. Before pressing the Start button, you must first select a note on the keyboard to designate the starting key of the arrangement. Playing a single note, a major third, or a major chord produces a major key. For minor keys, play a minor third or a minor chord. The i3 can recognize any basic or complex chord voicing as long as it's played within the chord scanning region. The chord scanning mode buttons determine which area of the keyboard will be used to generate backing tracks. The i3 has lower, upper, and full range chord scanning. Its range can be defined by a split point, which is also shown in the display. You can change the split point by holding down the single, layer, or split keyboard assign buttons and playing any note on the keyboard. When off is selected, chord scanning is disabled. Here's an example of lower range scanning. Select arrangement number 67, When a Man. And watch my chord voicings and the way I play slightly ahead of the beat to keep the transition smooth. Now let's select arrangement 52, Night Jams, to show upper chord scanning. This lets me use my left hand for bass lines. Now select arrangement 56, Groovin'. This uses full range scanning, which allows me to play with both hands, and the display will always show you what types of chords are being played. The keyboard assign mode tells you if you have a single program across the keyboard, a layer of 2 programs, a split which divides 2 programs across the keyboard, or manual drums which map several drum and percussion sounds across the keyboard. Back to single. Now I'll show you how to change programs in these modes. In the display, the current program, C11 MIDI Piano, is assigned to keyboard 1. To select another program, press the Bank and Program buttons. Let's choose A15, New Tines. To set up a layer of 2 sounds, press the Layer button. This adds C64, Airvox Double, as the keyboard 2 sound. To change the keyboard 2 sound, press the down cursor button once and select a new program such as C63, i3 strings. Now let's press the split button. Keyboard 1 is the upper program, and keyboard 2 is the lower one. Manual drums lets you play drum sounds across the keyboard. You can select different drum kits by using the bottom program buttons. One more thing, you can even change the live keyboard sounds while an arrangement is playing. When the chord hold button is off, the bass and accompaniment tracks stop playing when you take your hands off the keyboard, but the drums and percussion keep playing. A good example for this is arrangement 15, Riffin'. I'll choose variation 4. Check this out. Dynamic backing is a subtle effect. When it's on, your keyboard dynamic touch, or velocity, controls the volume level of the backing tracks. Go to arrangement 34, Surf City, and turn on dynamic backing. Experiment by playing hard and soft. Bass inversion lets you play chords with alternate bass notes. I'll use arrangement 61, 1000 hits. You can use the transpose button in arrangement play mode to change keys even while the i3 is playing. Listen to number 45, Motown 1968. The octave up and down buttons can be used to transpose keyboard 1 or keyboard 2 in the arrangement play mode. Use the cursor buttons to select which keyboard will be transposed. Tempo can be adjusted while the I3 is playing or when it's stopped. In the display, the tempo is always shown in beats per minute. Go to number 77, Soulful Sax, and start the music. The green LEDs above the data wheel give you a visual indication of the tempo. There are 3 ways to change tempo. You can use the data wheel, the up and down buttons, or you can use the tap tempo button to manually tap in the tempo. This can be done with 2 taps, but if you tap several times, the I3 will average them. The tempo lock button lets you keep the tempo constant when switching between styles that are set at different tempos. Let's use number 75, Old Blue Eyes, which uses tempo lock. Start it playing, press the style key, and choose some other styles. Now press the style button again. There are 4 different musical variations for each style. Select arrangement number 53, Dance Girls. Listen to the differences as I select different variations. Pressing either the fill 1 or 2 button produces an alternative musical phrase or fill. You can press these buttons at any time during an arrangement to get a seemingly wide variety of musical fills. Select arrangement 41, 90s Funk, and listen as I press the fill buttons at different times. This is a great way to add variety to your music. Intro 1 and Ending 1 have built-in chord changes and are designed for hands-off performance. You can pre-select the key by playing a note or chord in the chord scanning range, or use Synchro Start to generate an intro in the key of your choice immediately. Select arrangement 81, Ipanema. First, I'll play an intro in a major key by pressing a single note like this. Press the reset button, and this time I'll play a minor chord to produce a completely different intro in a minor key. This also works with the endings. Intro 2 and Ending 2 don't have built-in chord changes, allowing you to create intros and endings with your own chord progressions. Here's a quick and easy way to change your drum patterns and sounds within an arrangement. Call up arrangement number 87, stretch out, and press the Variation 1 button. This bypasses the intro. You can do this at any time to hear an arrangement without listening to the intro. Now select Synchro Start and play an E minor chord. Let's mute some backing tracks so that we can take a closer listen to the drums. Now after pressing the drum map button, I can select drum sounds and patterns. Button 1 gives you percussion. 2 adds a kick drum. 3 adds a side stick. 4 adds a ride cymbal. 5 brings in a snare and hi-hat. 6 is snare and ride. 7 moves to an open hi-hat. And 8 adds crash cymbals. Keep it going. To get out of this, I could press the ending buttons, but instead, here's a hot tip. I'll use the fill button and press stop for a different approach to an ending. To exit the drum map mode, press the Drum Maps button and any of the 4 program bank buttons simultaneously. Right now, I'd like to select arrangement number 65, Sad Songs, and show you some additional ways to customize an arrangement. Press the Page Plus button and move to page 2. Here is where you can change sounds along with their volume, panning, and effects. Now press Synchro Start, then Variation 1, and play a chord on the keyboard. Notice that the cursor is over the drum track. Press the Up button twice to change the General MIDI kit to the Analog kit. I can also change bass sounds by cursoring down to the bass track and then pressing the Up button twice to change from deep bass to fretless. The volume of each sound can be changed by highlighting it and then using the data wheel or the up and down buttons. Here's a great tip. You can use the arrangement style buttons like a numeric keypad to enter numbers by holding down the cursor button below the highlighted parameter and typing in the new value. Cursor to the right and you can change the panning parameter. Cursor right again to adjust the C and D effect send levels. Now press Stop. Page up to the Track Parameter 2 page. Here you can assign the backing tracks to control external MIDI instruments. You can select internal, external, or both. Sounds can be transposed up or down by octaves. Page up to the Arrangement Parameter 1 page to adjust the volume, panning, and C and D levels of the keyboard 1 and 2 sounds. You can also set velocity windows for each sound and select which sounds will respond to the damper pedal. Manual drums lets you select which drum program will be called up when you press the Manual Drums button. Chord Latch disables chord scanning while the damper pedal is pressed. Here's an example. Go back to page 1, select arrangement number 56, Groovin', and go to page 4. Disable the damper pedal on keyboards 1 and 2. Notice that the chord latch is on. Now you can latch the chord in a pattern and play anything you want without changing to another chord. Now stop the music and page up. The Arrangement Parameter 2 page lets you reassign alternate kick and snare drums to each arrangement. This page also allows you to assign different drum maps to each variation. The variation change determines which variation will follow after the fill. Page up to the Effects page. Effect 1 and 2 can select from a menu of 47 effects. Page up to the Utility page. Here we can rename and write an edited arrangement into memory. With Copy Arrangement, I can copy in an arrangement from another location. Here's another great tip. You can also copy in the effects from programs, songs, arrangements, and backing sequences. Copy Swap Effects lets you exchange and copy effects between both effects generators. For instance, you could copy Effect 1 to Effect 2, Effect 2 to Effect 1, or you could swap them. Here's a quick way to move through the pages of a mode. Instead of pressing the Page plus and minus keys, you can select pages by holding down the Mode button and pressing the arrangement style buttons like this. I'll leave it at page 1. You can use the bottom cursor keys to mute any of the accompaniment tracks and keyboard 1 and 2 sounds. Did you ever wish you had a drummer and bass player who could play perfectly with you without rehearsing? Select arrangement 71, After Hours. There's a flugelhorn at the top of the keyboard for soloing. Let's listen to what's in the stock arrangement. I'd like to turn this arrangement into a jazz trio with me on piano. First, I'll mute the 3 accompaniment tracks, and then change the keyboard assign to single, and choose a piano sound D11. I'll also press cursor key G to unmute the lower half of the keyboard. I'll also select full chord scanning to cover the same range. The piano needs to come up an octave, so I'll press the octave up button. I'll choose variation 4 to get that great walking bass. I like this edit, so I'll go to page 7 and write it into another location, 88 Bourbon Street. This will erase Bourbon Street, but it can always be reloaded from the factory disk. The backing sequence mode lets you record your live performance using all of the features of the arrangement play mode. This includes the arrangement you select, the chords and notes you play, and your selections of intros, fills, variations, and basically all the buttons that you press. There are also 8 extra sequence tracks that you can use to add additional musical parts. Press the backing sequence mode button. At the top of the display is the number and name of the backing sequence. To the right is the chord analysis field. The next row down displays the arrangement number and name, as well as the style number and name. Keyboard 1 and 2 sounds are shown, as well as the tempo. Below, you can select different backing sequences by changing the numbers. To the right is the measure readout, the meter display, and the input quantized note value. Below is the manual and automatic tempo setting. If you've entered tempo changes into the tempo track, this parameter must be set to auto for them to take effect. Next to the right is the track selector. A tracks stands for arrangement tracks, which include the keyboard, control, and chord tracks. This is also where you select your 8 extra tracks for recording. While recording extra tracks, it's possible to select different recording modes, such as overwrite, overdub, auto punch, and manual punch. Let me show you how this works. First, turn the i3 off and back on. This is a quick way to erase the backing sequencer in song memory. Let's start by pressing the backing sequence mode button. Select arrangement 22, Easy Rockin', but we also need to copy in the effects settings from that arrangement. Go to page 7 and cursor down to copy all effects. Change backing sequence to arrangement, and then use the data wheel to select arrangement number 22, Easy Rockin'. Now press copy and answer yes. It's done. Cursor up to metronome and set the lead in to 1 measure and its level to 40. Back to page 1. I'll leave chord scanning and keyboard assign set to lower and single with a piano as the live keyboard sound. I'll leave chord hold and bass inversion on. Variation 1 is already selected and I'll choose intro 1. I'll also press the drum maps button since I plan to make a drum map change during the sequence. Now press the record write button and then the start stop button to get a 1 measure count off, remembering to first pre-select the key from the keyboard, and here we go. Press the start-stop button, and my backing sequence starts to play. Now I'll stop it and press reset. Cursor down and set the record track to extra track number 1. I'll turn the drum maps off so that I can choose program A33 BX3 organ and set its volume to 90. I'll record a few bars to give you an example. Press stop and listen for a second. Stop and then press the reset button. Notice in the display there are parameters for not only adjusting the extra track's volume, but for panning and C and D effect send levels also. Here's another hot tip. Sometimes you might play notes or press buttons a little out of time. An easy way to correct this is by quantizing. Quantizing is a fancy word for error correction for timing. The i3 can do this either during your performance or after it. Let's go to page 5 where quantize is already highlighted. At the bottom of the page, I can use the data wheel or buttons to select the type of information I want to quantize. The choices are keyboard, control, which includes my button presses, my chord track, extra tracks 1 through 8, and the tempo track. I'll choose the chord track, cursor right to select my start and end measures, 1 to the end, cursor right again, and choose quarter note resolution because I didn't play any chords faster than a quarter note. Now press the quantize button. By the way, if you don't like the result, you can press the compare button to undo the quantize. You can then re-quantize at a different note value. Here's a special tip. Have you noticed that sometimes it's difficult to play your chord changes in smoothly? Use input quantize when recording a backing sequence, selecting a note value corresponding to how quickly you intend to play. On playback, the timing of your performance, including chord changes, will have been automatically corrected. For even more precise editing changes, let's go to the Event Edit mode. Select page 4, cursor down to Event Edit, and select Extra Track 1 at the bottom. At the bottom right corner, you'll see REC plus S/S to start. This means press the record button and then the start-stop button to enter the Event Edit mode. The first column is for the measure number. The next column shows the order of events. Next is the location of the event in the measure, which is shown in beats and clocks. There are 96 clocks or divisions for each quarter note. Next is the type of event. This could be a note, a bar, or some kind of controller event. To the right is the velocity value, which shows how hard a note was played. Finally, there are event durations that tell you how long a note was held. These parameters can all be changed by highlighting them and then using the data wheel up and down buttons or numeric entry with the arrangement style buttons. The easiest way to change notes is to highlight the note field, hold down the cursor button below, and play a new note. When you've finished, press the Start-Stop button to return to page 4. Very briefly, choose the chord track at the bottom and then enter Event Edit mode again. All chord changes appear and are available for editing. Press the Start button to exit and change to the control track. Now enter Event Edit again. As we cursor down, you'll see at measure 9, I press the Variation 1 button. All button presses are shown as you move through the measures. All of this can be edited. Now, exit this mode. An interesting thing to do would be to load in the factory demo backing sequences and go into Event Edit mode. You could learn how these sequences were created. Moving along on page 4, you can also erase, bounce, and copy tracks, and you can also erase a backing sequence without having to power down and up. Page up to page 5, the Edit Measure page. On this page, along with quantize, you can shift notes, transpose keys, and you can also delete, erase, copy, and insert measures. Move up to page 6, the Effects page. This is the same effects page that is found in the Program, Arrangement Play, and Song modes. It's currently displaying the effect settings that we just copied from arrangement number 22. All of the effects parameters can be edited. Page up to page 7, the Utility page. The next backing sequence feature lets you select the same or a different backing sequence to follow this one. At the bottom left, you can choose the next backing sequence. And to the right, you can have it wait or begin playing immediately. This is a great way to help you pre-program set lists for live performance. This is also where you name your backing sequence. The metronome can be switched on or off, Or you can set it to record, meaning you will only hear it while recording, but not during playback. You can also choose a 1 or 2 measure count off, or no count off at all. Also remember, you can adjust the volume of the metronome as well as the panning. Copy all effects and copy swap effects are also available on this page. The song mode contains a powerful 16-track sequencer with a 17th track dedicated to controlling tempo and meter. Turn your i3 off and back on to erase the sequencer memory. There isn't time to show you everything in this mode, so I'll show you some basic procedures and some special features. Now press the song mode button. At the top of the display is the current song name and number. You can see all 16 tracks in 2 rows with their program numbers in the display at one time. Use the Style button to change it to also show volumes, pannings, and the C and D effect level sends for each track. Next to the song number is where you choose the recording track. Let's select a drum kit for track 1. I want to select the GM drum kit, so I'll press the Drum Program button and the number 1 key in the bottom row. Now we need to turn on the metronome. I'll choose to have it on only while recording. Go to page 11, cursor down to metronome, leave a 2 measure lead in, and the level to 40. Now back to page 1. I'll leave the tempo at 120, and I'm going to be doing a drum part, so I'll record 4 bars using loop record mode like a drum machine. Move to the record mode and change overwrite to loop. We'll set the loop to go from measure 1 to measure 4. Since I'm recording drums first, I'll use the input quantize feature and set it to 16th note resolution. Press record right and then start stop, and here we go. Now let's change the record track to track 2 and select bass sound A52 deep bass. I've got a problem here. The bass is an octave too high. I'll use the octave down button to shift the bass down an octave. This is a most excellent feature. Also, I don't want to quantize my bass part while recording, so I'll reset the input quantize back to high resolution. Now let's go. I'll record an electric piano sound on track 3, D14 electric tap. Back in record. For track 4, let's use C36, pick mute, and set the quantized resolution to 16th notes again. Here we go. Now I'd like to show you a great way to use panning. Since loop record mode allows you to overdub, I can add other types of MIDI information to the same track, such as panning and volume changes. I'd like to hear this guitar pattern move back and forth from right to left as it plays. Here's how to do it. You won't hear the effect in this video, but you will hear it at home if your i3 is hooked up to a stereo sound system. Set quantize back to high resolution. Press the Style button twice to change the track parameters to panning and cursor up to track 4. It's showing CNT for center, so use the data wheel to set the pan to L15, which is far left. Now I go into record mode and move the data wheel between left 15 and right 15 and back again. Panning, ultra cool. Use the Style button to show program numbers again. Select track 5 and choose B13 tenor sax. Here we go. Whoops, I made a mistake. Instead of using the Edit Compare button and replaying the part, let's correct this mistake in the Event Edit mode on page 6. Notice that track 5 is showing at the bottom of the page. Cursor down to Event Edit and press the Record Right and Start Stop buttons. The song event list is identical to the backing sequencer event list, so let's move down the list and listen for the mistake. By the way, AFTT stands for Aftertouch. Here's our mistake. You can use the down and up buttons to change to the right note, or you can hold down the cursor button below the event and play the correct note on the keyboard. You can also insert or delete notes, controller data, and program changes with the last 2 cursor keys. First, make sure you're in the right measure. Press the Insert button, which will give you a C3 note by default. You can change to the note of your choice, or change it into a MIDI controller event by turning the data wheel all the way to the right and then pressing the down button once. Enter the controller number and the value to the right. Pressing the down button once more and you have a program change event. To the right you can choose programs or drum kits. To delete this event, press the delete button. Now press the Start Stop button to exit the Event Edit mode. Back to page 1. I'll change the record mode from loop record to overwrite. Go to page 2 and look at some other functions. Each track can be set to off, or to play an internal program, an external program, or both. Go to page 4. At the top of pages 4 and 5, you can select the MIDI channel for each track. Go to page 6. Step recording allows you to record parts that might be too technical or difficult to play. You can erase, bounce, and copy tracks, and you can erase and append songs. Go to page 7. Here you can delete, erase, copy, and insert measures. For instance, I could take the 4 measures I have just recorded and copy them to measure 5 to double the sequence's length. Here's how. Cursor to copy measure and set the track number to all. Set the source measure to 1 and the source end measure to 4. Make sure the destination is set to all and the destination measure is set to 5. Now press copy. You now have an 8-measure sequence. Copy measure is a real time saver. Go to page 8. Quantize is found on this page. Also, shift note, which allows you to move events from one note to another. For instance, you might want to change from one snare drum note to another in a sequence. Next is key transpose for transposing sections of a song. Modify velocity is used for making gradual velocity changes on a track. Modify gate time shortens, lengthens, or even slurs notes within a range of a track. Finally, modify control data is handy for programming volume fades and gradual tempo changes. Page up to page 9, the pattern page. On this page, you can record patterns using real-time and step recording. These patterns can be put or copied anywhere on a track. Page up to page 10, the effects page. The song sequencer has a default effect setup, which we see here. If you're not experienced in using digital effects, I'd advise you to stick with these settings. Finally, up to page 11. The song utility page is similar to that found in the backing sequencer. Obviously, I can't cover everything about the song sequencer in a tape of this length, but at least this should get you started. Now for the global mode. Press the global button for the utility section of the i3. On page 1, you can adjust the overall tuning of the i3 up or down by sense. Transpose position gives you the option of post keyboard or pre-oscillator. Post keyboard is the standard setting. Local control is where you can turn the keyboard off to internal sounds, which is what you'd want to do when you're using the i3 with an external sequencer. Clock source is for selecting either the internal or an external clock source. Next are the individual MIDI channels for the overall i3 keyboard and for each of the backing tracks in an arrangement. At the bottom are the MIDI filters for enabling or disabling certain types of MIDI data. Next page is where you can set the polarity for your damper pedal. Cursor down to select the functions for each of the assignable pedals. Take a second to move through the possibilities with the up and down buttons. Cursor down again to curve, which is where you can choose various velocity and aftertouch curves for the keyboard. Cursor down again for protecting program, arrangement, and style memories. Go to page 3. Page 3 is where you can make function choices for your EC5 foot controller. Each of the 5 buttons on the EC5 can perform many functions, leaving your fingers available for playing. Take some time to move through all the choices. Page up. Page 4 is where you can select alternate tuning scales. Page up. Page 5 and 6 are for the 2 user drum kits. These kits give you the ability to completely customize drum kits to your preferences. Go to page 7. The drum utility page allows you to load preset drum kits into the user drum kits for editing. Page up to page 8, where you can load styles from Korg style cards. Page 9 is for dumping data from your i3 into external devices. So much for the global mode. Let's talk a little bit about the disk mode. Press the disk mode button. Page 1 is for loading all programs, songs, and so forth. Page 2 is where you can load just one of anything, such as one standard MIDI file. Speaking of standard MIDI files, let me show you how to load one in. Insert the disk into the drive and cursor down to load standard MIDI file. Press the A cursor button and use the up and down buttons to see what standard MIDI files are on the disk. I'll choose Moonlight Serenade. And press the F cursor button to highlight the desired song number. Now press the load button and say yes. When the display shows completed, press the song button and the start button to play the sequence. You can continue to load songs until your memory is full. Now back to the disk mode. The i3 uses 3.5-inch double-sided, double-density floppy disks. Before you can save a file to a disk, the disk must be formatted. Formatting erases all the data on a disk and prepares it for the particular system that your instrument uses. A word to the wise: always check to make sure your disk doesn't contain information you want to keep. Go to page 5 and cursor down to Format Disk. Insert a blank disk. Press the Format button. And when Are You Sure appears, answer yes. This will take a few minutes. Also, a word of warning. Never try to remove a disk from the disk drive while the disk drive is active. This could damage your disk. When the formatting is finished, the word completed will appear. To save a file, go to page 3. Cursor to the type of file you wish to save. Give the file a name at the bottom of the display. Cursor to the Set Date field and set the date. Then press the Save button and answer yes. By the way, if you're saving a standard MIDI file, always choose the Format 1 setting. Well, that's about it. I hope this video has been a help to you. One thing, don't let this video keep you from reading your reference and player's guides. You'll be surprised at how easy they are to understand. The player's guide is written in tutorial format, which walks you through most i3 procedures. It's a big help. After watching this tape, the manual should be much easier to understand. Also, Freelance Goes to School has video owner's manuals available for the Korg M1, the O3RW, the O1W, and the X3 series of workstations. These videos are available at your local Korg dealer. If you have one of these instruments, pick up your video today. Thanks for watching, and remember to experiment with your i3 and have fun.
Make sure that you contact your authorized Korg dealer to find out about new I-Series style discs, standard MIDI file libraries, and new ROM upgrades that add features such as the ability to convert backing sequences to standard MIDI files, separate MIDI channels for split keyboard mode, plus many other new functions.